6. Sam Ratulangi PB-1600. In the latter part of 2018, approximately 7 miles off the shores of Myanmar, a notable discovery was made. The Sam Ratulangi PB-1600, a sizable container vessel. Despite being constructed in 2001, the vessel bore the wear and tear of time, resembling a weathered and rust-covered relic. Curiously, upon closer inspection, it became evident that the ship was devoid of cargo and, even more perplexingly, lacked a crew. Remarkably, the Sam Ratulangi PB-1600 had last been reported near Taiwan almost a decade prior. The Myanmar Navy found themselves confronted with an enigma that seemed straight out of a ghostly maritime tale. Investigations soon revealed that the Sam Ratulangi PB-1600 had been en route to a shipbreaking facility in Chittagong, Bangladesh, with the assistance of a tugboat. Clues in the form of cables at the bow of the vessel suggested an intention to tow it somewhere. The whereabouts of the tugboat, however, remained a tantalizing mystery. Had it met a similar fate? Could pirates have played a role, or had a tempestuous storm claimed both vessels? Subsequently, the tugboat christened the Independence was located along with its Indonesian crew. These crew members admitted to Myanmar naval authorities that they had indeed been towing the Sam Ratulangi PB-1600, but a fierce storm had caused the vessel to break loose. With this revelation, the cryptic puzzle was finally unraveled, dispelling the ghostly aura surrounding the abandoned container ship. 5. The Octavius. It was mid to late 1775 when the captain of the Herald, a whaling ship, spotted a mysterious ship drifting off the coast of Greenland. The mysterious ship was the Octavius. It had been some 14 years since anyone had laid eyes on the Octavius. The rumor was the ship had sailed from England to China. The captain of the ship allegedly made plans to find the famed Northwest Passage, a northerly water route that linked the Atlantic to the Pacific. The crew of the Herald decided to board the Octavius, and they were horrified at what they discovered. As they made their way down into the deck, the crew of the Herald discovered the 28-man crew all dead. But they were not just dead, they froze to death. Perhaps the most eerie discovery on the ship was the captain of the Octavius in his quarters. He was rumored to have been found at his desk with a pen in hand. The ship's logbook was in front of him. He too had froze to death. When they looked around, they noticed a woman that froze to death while holding a young child. The horror was too much for the crew to process. Someone from the Herald grabbed the logbook as evidence, and they got back on the Herald. Sadly, the pages from the logbook of the Octavius were lost, and the crew only had a few pages left as evidence. When the log was reviewed, it was discovered that the Octavius sailed north from China to Barrow, Alaska. Somehow, the ship navigated the Arctic and made its way to Greenland. The Herald returned home, and they shared their tale. The Octavius was not seen by anyone after the reported incident with the Herald. It was written that the last entry in the logbook for the Octavius read, 11th November 1762. We've now been enclosed in the ice 70 days. The fire went out yesterday, and our master has been trying ever since to rekindle it again without success. His wife died yesterday. There is no relief. 4. The Mary Celeste. The Mary Celeste was a boat that left New York City on November 7, 1872. On board was Benjamin Spooner Briggs, the captain, his wife, and their 2-year-old daughter. There were 7 men on the crew, and their plan was to sail to Italy. The ship's cargo had 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol. What happened next has led to a mystery over 150 years old. A British ship, Dei Gracia, saw the Mary Celeste drifting in the Atlantic. The Mary Celeste was discovered some 400 miles off the coast of the Azores, an island chain in the Atlantic near Portugal. The crew of the Dei Gracia was stunned to see the ship, as it had taken off just 8 days before the Dei Gracia set sail. The crew of the Dei Gracia was curious, and they boarded the Mary Celeste, and what they found was shocking. Not one person was on board the Mary Celeste, and the lifeboat was missing. Also, the ship had some 6 months' worth of food and water, which was plenty for the voyage. The cargo was untouched. The ship had a flooding issue where 3 feet of water was on the ship's floor. That was not a dire situation, and the crew could have repaired the leak responsible for the water coming into the ship. The crew discovered the last log entry by Captain Benjamin Spooner Briggs for the ship was November 25th. The crew of the Dei Gracia decided to bring the ship to Gibraltar, a British territory in Spain at the entrance of the Mediterranean Sea. The Mary Celeste was to be examined by the British Vice Admiralty Court. The reason the crew of the Dei Gracia brought the ship to Gibraltar was to salvage the ship. By doing so, the crew was entitled to the insurance money on the Mary Celeste. At the time, the insurance money was roughly $46,000. The British officers in Gibraltar were suspicious of the crew of the Mary Celeste. Were they trying to pull a scam? Did they do something sinister to Captain Benjamin Spooner Briggs, his family, and the crew of the Mary Celeste? A 3-month investigation led to no evidence of foul play. The insurance company, however, decided not to pay the full $46,000 to the crew of the Dei Gracia, but a fraction. During the early 2000s, Anne McGregor and oceanographer Phil Richardson decided to investigate the fate of the Mary Celeste. She told Smithsonian Magazine in 2007, "There's so much nonsense written about this legend," she said. "I felt compelled to find the truth." What she found was fascinating and absolutely baffling. She found no evidence of a mutiny or even an attack by pirates. If there was a mutiny, then the ship would have been in worse condition. The ship was by no means in peril due to the flooding. The captain and crew were experienced, and abandoning ship was the last thing they wanted to do in the Atlantic. McGregor and Richardson's research led them to believe that there were some equipment issues with the Mary Celeste. First, it was believed that the chronometer, an important piece of equipment for navigation, was faulty, and it had them 120 miles west in the wrong direction. The flooding in the ship was more than likely caused by faulty ship pumps. They were found disassembled on the Mary Celeste, leading McGregor and Richardson to believe that Benjamin Spooner Briggs was concerned about the flooding and wasn't sure if it would get progressively worse. However, the truth about the fate of Mary Celeste remains a mystery. Benjamin Spooner Briggs, his wife, his daughter, and the crew were never found. What do you think happened to them? Let us know in the comments and hit subscribe while you're at it. 3. The North Korean ghost ships. A truly bizarre situation occurred on the western coast of Japan during the late 2010s. Fishing vessels were discovered in the Sea of Japan by their Coast Guard. These vessels were believed to be fishing boats from North Korea due to the markings on the ships. What was discovered on the vessels shocked the Coast Guard. Human remains were found on the boats. The crew died under mysterious circumstances, but they were in an advanced state of decomposition. The Japanese Coast Guard knew North Korean fishing vessels go out to catch squid and king crab. Sadly, the North Korean vessels are not equipped with proper equipment like GPS navigation systems or even a reliable motor. Another frustration for the Japanese is that North Korea will not send out any information about missing ships. Those that go out and are lost are never reported, which is incredibly heartbreaking for the North Korean families of the missing fishermen. Why were so many vessels being found with dead crews on board? One theory is that North Korea's sanctions due to their nuclear program has caused a food shortage in their country. Fishermen are forced to sail out and get larger hauls to ease the shortage. Another problem is that North Korea's need for cash led them to sell fishing rights off their own coast to China. That means Chinese boats are in competition with North Korean fishermen. Also, North Korea's government has allowed fishermen in North Korea to keep their surplus. These incentives have made desperate people make decisions that are highly dangerous. With food being short and equipment being less than up to date on the vessels, these fishermen are in over their heads with their fishing. A lack of supplies and exposure are more than likely the culprits of their deaths. In recent years, the Japanese have found North Korean vessels with fishermen still alive on them. However, the North Koreans are sent back to their country. 2. Ourang Medan. The story of the Ourang Medan appeared in newspapers in the United States during the 1940s. Ourang Medan is from the Malay language and means man of Medan. There's a saying in the world of ship naming that naming a ship after a man is considered bad luck. It's the tale of a ship and a crew that met a horrific fate. Some believe the story is true, while others claim it's a ghost story. You can decide. Sometime during the 1940s, an Italian ship was sailing 400 miles southeast of the Marshall Islands when they picked up an SOS message from a ship known as the Ourang Medan. The message sent was, "We are floating. Second officer dead on bridge. Captain and chief engineer dead in chart room. Probably whole crew dead. Partly, the ship's position was also provided." The Italian crew was trying to contact the Ourang Medan, and the last message from that ship was, "I am dying." The Italian crew discovered that the Ourang Medan was a ship used to transport Chinese troops. They tried to find the Ourang Medan but had no luck. The next day, they found the Ourang Medan some 50 miles from where the ship claimed to be. The Italian ship hailed the Ourang Medan, but there was no response. A crew from the Italian ship decided to board the mysterious ship. The Italian boarding crew was met with death. There were bodies everywhere, and they all had something in common. All those who were dead had horrific facial expressions. It was as if they experienced the ultimate horror, but what did they experience? The next stop on the ship for the Italians was the wireless room where the operator was found dead. Meanwhile, the rest of the crew on board the Italian ship noticed something on the Ourang Medan. Smoke was coming out of the ship. They called to warn the boarding party. Their boarding party scrambled to escape the Ourang Medan. They jumped into their boats, and then there was an explosion on the Ourang Medan. 3 more explosions followed, and the Ourang Medan sank as the Italians watched. All that survived was their tale of the mysterious ship with the crew members who died with the most horrific expressions on their faces. 1. Beijimo. The Beijimo was a vessel built in Sweden and launched in 1914. When it was built, the name of the ship was Angermanelven, but was named Beijimo circa 1920, when it was purchased by the Hudson's Bay Company in Canada. It was a company that made its name in the fur trade and later in the retail industry. It was a vessel that sailed at times to Scotland from Canada, but the Beijimo also sailed the Western Arctic. It would deliver supplies to the Northwest Territories of Canada. During the winter, the ship would dock in Vancouver. It was late 1931 when the Beijimo was sailing from the Northwest Territories region to Vancouver. The ship was caught in a horrible storm near Barrow, Alaska, and the crew decided to anchor at a spot. They soon realized that they would have to spend the winter there and not Vancouver. They decided the ship was not an adequate home for the crew during the winter. Some crew members left the ship and a few stayed on board. The crew on board had to make sure that ice did not form around the rudder of the Beijimo. November 1931 arrived, and another storm hit the area where the Beijimo was anchored. The storm apparently sent the vessel adrift. The captain and crew thought the ship had sank instead of going adrift. They later received news that the Beijimo was spotted some 44 miles south of their location. The ship was stuck in ice. It was cleared of its cargo, and the crew decided to leave the ship in the ice. However, the ship had a different plan. It pulled the most amazing disappearing act. The captain and crew made it to Vancouver in 1932. They were ready to complete some paperwork about the ship when they learned it was spotted nearly 300 miles to the east of Barrow, Alaska. From 1933 until 1962, the Beijimo was spotted by various vessels. During this time, it was also boarded at different times between 1933 and 1939. The ship was spotted in 1962 by the Inuit in the Beaufort Sea. Finally, in 1969, the Beijimo was seen frozen in an ice pack. That was the last time the ship was seen by someone. What was the fate of the Beijimo? It more than likely sank and has yet to be discovered.
The USS Nevada. The 583-foot-long super dreadnought battleship, the USS Nevada, was hailed by the New York Times as the greatest battleship afloat when she entered service in 1916. Both the Nevada and her sister ship, the USS Oklahoma, were the most heavily armored U.S. Navy vessels at the time. They were also the first to use oil as their primary fuel. Boasting massive 14-inch guns that were capable of firing 1,500-pound shells at distances of up to 30 miles, the Nevada represented a new era of dreadnought technology, and she'd live up to her alleged capabilities throughout her decades-long career, earning her the nickname of the Invincible Nevada. The vessel was equipped with what was known as an all-or-now armoring system, which involves heavily arming the most vulnerable parts of a ship while leaving other areas completely without armor. World War I service. After the United States entered World War I in 1917, the Nevada-class ships and the Florida-class USS Utah operated out of Ireland as convoy escorts. Nicknamed the Bantry Bay Squadron, they protected merchant vessels from falling victim to German ships. The Nevada didn't see any combat during this first round of wartime service, but she did get the honor of being among 10 battleships that escorted then-President Woodrow Wilson during the last day of his voyage aboard the SS George Washington to Brest, France for the Paris Peace Conference. The 10 ships set sail for the United States the very next day, and less than 2 weeks later they arrived in New York, where they were greeted with parades and celebration. The interwar period. Between the First and Second World Wars, the Nevada served both in the Atlantic and Pacific fleets of the U.S. Navy. In 1921, the ship traveled to Peru for the centennial exposition of the country's independence. Then, the following year, the Nevada sailed to South America for Brazil's centennial celebration of Brazilian independence between September 5th and September 11th. 3 years later, in 1925, the Nevada participated in a goodwill cruise to Australia and New Zealand, and upon her return to the United States, she was taken to the Norfolk Navy Yard in Portsmouth, Virginia for repairs and updates. The elevation of the ship's main guns was raised, increasing their range considerably, and anti-torpedo bulges were installed. Meanwhile, workers replaced the aging boilers with a newer and more efficient system. Multiple guns were added, and the existing weaponry was modernized. When the overhaul was finally finished in 1930, the Nevada was assigned to the Pacific Fleet, where she'd remain for the next 11 years. Pearl Harbor. On the morning of December 6, 1941, Imperial Japanese forces attacked the U.S. military base at Pearl Harbor, solidifying America's decision to officially enter World War II. The entire Pacific Fleet was in port when the attack occurred. Just as the Nevada's crew was about to open fire on the Japanese aircraft above, an 18-inch torpedo struck the ship. The Nevada was nevertheless the only ship in the port to get underway in response to the attack. For this reason, she'd later be described as the only bright spot in an otherwise dismal and depressing morning. Anti-aircraft gunners shot down 4 enemy planes during the first wave of the attack, including the aircraft that had torpedoed the ship. And as the vessel began to take on water and list from the torpedo damage, crew members flooded the other side of the ship to balance her out. During the second wave of the attack, the Nevada was a prime target for Japanese dive bombers. Their apparent goal was to sink the Nevada, presumably for the purpose of blocking the harbor. The Japanese dropped at least 6 more bombs on the ship, including one that struck near the gas tank, causing intense fires to erupt on board. Knowing it was only a matter of time before the Nevada sank, the captain grounded her on a coral ledge off the west side of Ford Island. Meanwhile, crew members managed to shoot down 3 more Japanese planes. The raging fires aboard the ship made it impossible to contain the flooding. 60 crew members died, and another 109 were wounded throughout the attack. And while the Nevada was more or less destroyed, the US needed all the ships it could get as the country prepared to deploy troops overseas en masse. But the decision was eventually made to remove the Nevada from the water and perform the extensive repairs that it needed in order to become functional again. Attu. In February of 1942, the Nevada was refloated and towed to the Puget Sound Naval Shipyard in Bremerton, Washington. Then, over the next 8 months, the ship underwent a major overhaul. After undergoing repairs and modernization, she sailed to Alaska, where the Japanese had occupied the Aleutian Islands of Attu and Kiska. Given the often dismal weather conditions and the isolated nature of these small volcanic landmasses, it's hard to see what purpose they could possibly serve for an invading military force. Japan attacked the Aleutian Islands partially in an effort to distract the Americans, which would in theory decrease the likelihood of US military attacks in part of the Pacific arena. It was the first attack on the continental US in 130 years, and for the Japanese, it served the added bonus of sparking fears of future attacks along the west coast in the lower 48. Occupying Imperial forces retained control over the islands for nearly a year before the US military fought to retake the territory. The Nevada provided fire support during the American military's efforts to recapture Attu, and after 20 days of fighting, the campaign ended with a US victory. From there, the Nevada traveled to the Norfolk Navy Yard in Portsmouth, Virginia for further renovations. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Now, let's get back to it. D-Day. In mid-1943, the newly upgraded Nevada entered service as a merchant convoy escort. This was a common use for aging American battleships at the time. But it was also a temporary gig for the Nevada, which arrived in the United Kingdom in April 1944 in preparation for the Allied landings at Normandy. Famously known as D-Day and codenamed Operation Overlord, it was one of the largest amphibious invasions in world history, and the mission aimed to free France from Nazi control. Under the command of Admiral Powell M. Rea, the Nevada's role was to provide gunfire for 2 of the landings at Utah Beach as part of the Western Naval Task Force. During the pre-dawn hours of June 6, 1944, the Nevada headed south toward the English Channel as one of nearly 5,000 warships, troop transports, and landing craft that would participate in the invasion. One of the Nevada's most important tasks was to destroy a 12-foot seawall along with 110 German artillery pieces. Completing these objectives was necessary in order for the Allied soldiers to survive the initial landing and move inland. From 4.6 miles away, the ship's crew began blasting at the seawall and other targets with the help of airborne spotters, who provided the sailors with precise shooting instructions. On the first day alone, the Nevada fired nearly 400 1,500-pound shells from its main battery guns, as well as nearly 2,700 ammunition rounds. Throughout the second day, the Nevada destroyed several pieces of German artillery and broke up a formation of enemy troops who were attempting to close in on Allied paratroopers. And the next day, the ship broke up a blockade consisting of 90 Axis-controlled tanks and several dozen trucks. About a week later, the Nevada received orders to bombard the German-occupied port of Cherbourg. The Nazis fired back, and the ship fired more than 1,200 shells from its main guns, along with over 3,500 smaller rounds. And remarkably, the Nevada wasn't struck during the exchange of gunfire. After the storming of Normandy, the Nevada and a large number of other Allied ships traveled to the Mediterranean for a planned invasion of southern France. Initially known as Operation Anvil and later called Operation Dragoon, the mission was to be carried out in a similar fashion to the D-Day landings. Due to the strength of the armor, guns, and fortifications that the Allies expected to encounter, the Nevada's crew arrived with orders to level the fortress that sat along the shoreline of Toulon. During the invasion, the Nevada duked it out with the captured French ship Strasbourg in a long-range artillery battle. She also delivered decisive blows to the fortress as well as enemy artillery and multiple German gun batteries. After Toulon fell to the Allies, the Nevada began the transatlantic journey back to the United States to undergo a maintenance overhaul. The Pacific Arena. In February 1945, the Nevada sailed into the waters off Iwo Jima with a 2,000-member crew in preparation for a planned invasion of the island. During the invasion, the ship's job was to provide fire support for the advancing Allied troops from roughly 1,800 feet offshore. Roughly 5 weeks later, in late March, the Nevada traveled to the waters off Okinawa, Japan, in anticipation of another planned invasion. Dubbed Operation Iceberg, it was World War II's largest amphibious operation, with a naval force of 1,500 ships and a 500,000-strong force of military members, each with their own specialized assigned role. The Nevada was part of a gunfire and covering force called Task Force 54, which was made up of 6 units. The ship was part of Task Force 54's Unit 3, which also included the American battleship the USS Tennessee, 1 heavy cruiser, 2 light cruisers, and 5 destroyers. After entering the harbor under the cover of night, the Allies laid siege to Japanese airfields, shore defenses, supply stores, and the enemy troops themselves. The Nevada inflicted considerable damage on its target, but the situation changed dramatically the next morning when 7 kamikaze fighters attacked the force. One of the planes crashed into the Nevada's main deck, killing 11 service members and injuring 49 others. The collision also knocked 2 turret guns and 20 anti-aircraft weapons out of place. Then, in late June, after roughly 12 weeks of fighting, the Allies officially seized control of Okinawa, and the Nevada and many other ships were sent to patrol the East China Sea for the remainder of the war. A few weeks after the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the ship's crew finally received confirmation that the conflict was over and they'd soon be going home. Post-retirement. After returning to Pearl Harbor, the 32-and-a-half-year-old Nevada was deemed too outdated for continued service. All but 4 of the 23 American battleships that saw combat after Pearl Harbor were retired shortly after the war ended, including the Nevada. Over the next 20 years or so, most of the defunct ships were sold for scrap or donated as museum ships. Others were relocated to the waters off Bikini Atoll in the Marshall Islands, where the U.S. military infamously carried out nuclear bomb tests over a 12-year period from 1946 to 1958. In preparation for a series of tests dubbed Operation Crossroads, the military organized a large fleet of inactive warships near the island. These vessels, including the Nevada, were used as targets during the experiment, which sought to test the effects of nuclear explosives on an enemy fleet. During the first test, dubbed Able, a 23-kiloton plutonium core atomic bomb was dropped from an altitude of 30,000 feet. The Nevada and 4 other decommissioned ships were anchored nearby, while witnesses waited anxiously on boats about 10 miles away. Military officials fully expected the explosion to destroy the vessels near the test site. The bomb exploded about 500 feet above the ground, causing a 40,000-foot mushroom cloud to form. Much to the surprise of everyone involved, the Nevada was still intact when the smoke cleared. And it was soon discovered that Air Force officials had missed their target by roughly 700 yards. 3 weeks later, the military detonated a nuclear bomb 90 feet underwater in a test dubbed Baker, hoping for better results this time around. The blast was immense. It capsized and sank the USS Arkansas, and the Nevada was reportedly lifted out of the water by the force of the explosion. Yet once again, she remained fully intact. After these tests, the ship was too contaminated with radiation for anyone to board safely. So she was left anchored off Bikini Atoll for 3 months before being towed 250 miles to Kwajalein Atoll where she remained for the next 2 years. In 1948, Navy officials decided to sink the Nevada as a target. They detonated several explosives which caused some damage but failed to sink the ship. Experimental missiles were dropped from airplanes, but they all missed the vessel. Commanders ordered the crews of several destroyers to open fire on the Nevada, which once again caused damage to the ship but failed to sink it. Even after being struck by dozens of rounds and multiple aerial rockets, the retired battleship continued to live up to her name as the Invincible Nevada. The fast battleship USS Iowa was summoned to the scene, where her crew fired multiple 2,000-pound armor-piercing rounds straight into the ship, and although she was heavily damaged by this point, the Nevada refused to go down. A hailstorm of armor-piercing shells from point-blank range came next, still with no success. 6 days later, though, a bomber aircraft dropped a torpedo on the Nevada, and finally it began to list, and less than a half an hour later, it slipped completely beneath the waves. It's likely safe to assume that the military was relieved to finally sink the Nevada after nearly a week of embarrassing failed attempts. But the unceremonious end to the ship's career was a more solemn experience for some of her former crew members, who reportedly cried after learning of her fate through news reports. The wreck. As mentioned previously, the military was glad to have the stubborn Nevada out of sight and therefore out of mind. And for this reason, the wreck's exact location was a mystery until 2020, when a team led by maritime archaeologist Dr. James Delgado located the submerged vessel roughly 75 miles southwest of Pearl Harbor. The wreck sits upside down on the dark ocean floor at a depth of roughly 15,400 feet and is accompanied by a nearby debris field containing the ship's turrets, which fell off the ship as she sank to her watery grave. Footage from the wreck site showed that the hull was still painted, with the number 36 visible on the vessel's stern. 4 tanks that went down with the vessel are also located in and around the wreck. Today, Nevada remains one of the most iconic warships in American history. In addition to being recognized for her wartime contributions, she's also remembered for being so well built that a barrage of bombs and gunfire failed to plunge her beneath the waves.
8. The USCGC Mackinac. The USCGC Mackinac is a multi-purpose ship that is also the only heavy icebreaker stationed on the Great Lakes for the United States Coast Guard. The ship was built to replace the last USCGC Mackinac, which was decommissioned back in 2006 and renovated into a museum ship. The new Mackinac is 240 feet, 73 meters long, has a beam of 58.5 feet, 18 meters, and a displacement weight of 3,500 tons, 3.5 million kilograms. This ship can break through ice up to 42 inches, 106 centimeters thick, with its 2 Azipod units, which are electric azimuth thrusters that are capable of rotating 360 degrees. The ship also has a powerful bow thruster, a diesel-electric propulsion system, and an integrated main propulsion and electrical plant. The vessel can reach a speed of 16 knots, 18.4 miles per hour, and has a crew made up of 9 officers and 46 personnel. The USCGC Mackinac's primary mission is to maintain ice-breaking capability on the Great Lakes to help keep channels and harbors open for navigation and commerce. The ship also performs other important tasks like aids to navigation, law enforcement, search and rescue, environmental response, and even oil spill recovery. It's equipped with multiple sensors, communication systems, weapons, and small boats to help it carry out these tasks. The USCGC Mackinac was delivered to the Coast Guard on November 18, 2005, and officially commissioned on June 10, 2006. The ship is homeported in Sheboygan, Michigan, and operates mostly on Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, Lake Superior, and Lake Erie. It has participated in several operations and exercises, such as Operation Coal Shovel, Operation Fall Retrieve, Operation Spring Restore, Operation Atlantic Resolve, and more. The Mackinac has also visited several ports and cities like Chicago, Milwaukee, Detroit, Cleveland, Toronto, Montreal, Quebec City, Halifax, and Reykjavik. The vessel has received several awards and commendations for her time on the water, such as the Coast Guard Unit Commendation, the Coast Guard Meritorious Unit Commendation, the Coast Guard E Ribbon, and the Coast Guard Arctic Service Medal. The USCGC Mackinac is a unique and versatile ship that plays a critical role in ensuring the safety and security of the Great Lakes. The boat is a symbol of the Coast Guard's commitment to service and excellence in carrying out its missions. 7. The USCGC Polar Sea. The USCGC Polar Sea is a heavy icebreaker for the United States Coast Guard. It was commissioned back in 1977 and built by the Lockheed Shipbuilding and Construction Company of Seattle, along with its sister ship, USCGC Polar Star. The Polar Sea is one of the most powerful icebreakers in the entire world, with a combined diesel-electric or gas propulsion system capable of producing up to 75,000 horsepower. It can also break up to 21 feet of ice, 6 meters, at a steady speed of 3 knots. Seattle, Washington is Polar Sea's home port, but it has operated all around the globe, performing many missions in both polar regions. It's designed to support science, icebreaking, search and rescue, environmental protection, law enforcement, and other vital Coast Guard functions. It has 5 laboratories on board and space for 7 portable laboratories on its deck, as well as 2 helicopters for logistics support. The ship can also process real-time satellite images to help with navigation, planning, and forecasting. Polar Sea has taken part in many notable expeditions and operations, like Operation Deep Freeze in Antarctica, Operation Arctic Shield in the Arctic Ocean, and the International Trans-Antarctica Expedition, which took place between 1989 to 1990. It has also conducted joint exercises and exchanges with other countries' icebreaker ships, such as Canada, Russia, Sweden, and Finland. But Polar Sea has been out of service for over a decade since 2010, thanks to the failure of 5 of its 6 diesel engines. It is currently in inactive commission in Seattle, awaiting a decision to be made on its future. The Coast Guard has proposed decommissioning the Polar Sea and using its parts to extend the service life of Polar Star until a new icebreaker is built. But some lawmakers and experts have argued that the Polar Sea should be repaired and reactivated to help increase U.S. icebreaking capability. The Polar Sea is a remarkable ship that has served the world for over 4 decades. It has contributed greatly to scientific discovery, humanitarian assistance, national security, and international cooperation. 6. Arktika. Arktika is the name of 2 Russian nuclear-powered icebreakers that operate in the Arctic region. The first Arktika was launched in 1972 and was the first surface ship to make it to the North Pole in 1977. It was retired later on in 2008 after 33 years of dedicated service. The second Arktika is the lead ship of a new class of icebreakers that are much larger and more powerful than their predecessors. It was launched in 2016 and fully commissioned in 2020. It can break through ice that's up to 10 feet, 3 meters thick, and has a displacement of 33,500 tons. Both icebreakers are designed to use their weight and hull to crack through ice from above instead of ramming it from the front. They are powered by 2 nuclear reactors, making them the most powerful icebreakers in the world. They also have both helipads and hangars for helicopters, which can help with navigation and rescue operations. The Arctic icebreakers are crucial for Russia's economic and strategic interests in the Arctic, where climate change is opening up new shipping routes and access to natural resources. Russia has over 2 million citizens living above the Arctic Circle and relies heavily on icebreakers to supply them with essential goods and services. Russia also claims a large portion of the Arctic seabed, which is rich in oil and gas deposits. The Arktika icebreakers are part of Russia's goal to assert dominance and protect its sovereignty in the Arctic. 5. The CCGS Louis S. Saint Laurent. The CCGS Louis S. Saint Laurent is a heavy icebreaker and the flagship for the Canadian Coast Guard, CCG. It's named after Louis Saint Laurent, the 12th Prime Minister of Canada. The vessel was launched back in 1966 and commissioned in 1969. It's the largest icebreaker and ship in Canada's fleet. The vessel's home port is St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. It operates along the Atlantic coastline and the Eastern Arctic. where it helps support the annual Arctic sea lift to several coastal communities and carries out scientific expeditions. It also assists icebreaking operations in the Gulf of St. Lawrence during heavy ice years. The vessel is 390 feet, 120 meters long, with a beam of 78 feet and a draft of 32 feet, 10 meters. It has a displacement of 15,324 tons and a tonnage of 11,345 GT. It's a Polar Class 4 ice class, which means it operates year-round in medium first-year ice and in old ice during the warmer seasons. It has a speed of 16 knots, 18.4 miles per hour, and an endurance of 205 days. The vessel is powered by 5 diesel engines that generate electricity for 3 separate propellers. It has a helicopter deck and hangar that accommodates 2 Bell 429 helicopters. The ship holds 46 crew members and can carry up to 40 additional passengers or scientists. It holds various scientific equipment like an oceanographic winch, a multi-beam sonar, and a meteorological station. The vessel has taken part in several notable missions, such as the SS Manhattan expedition in the Northwest Passage in 1969, the joint Canada-US Arctic Ocean Survey in 2009 to 2010, and the 2012 joint Canada-Denmark expedition to map out the continental shelf in the Lincoln Sea. The ship is expected to stay in service until the late 2020s, after undergoing several refits at the Davie Shipyard in Quebec. It will eventually be replaced by a newer polar icebreaker, the CCGS John G. Diefenbaker, which is currently being built. Would you take a trip on an icebreaker ship? Let us know in the comments below. And be sure to subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the video so far. 4. The Yamal. The Yamal icebreaker ship is an incredible feat of engineering and a symbol of Russia's powerful presence in the Arctic. It is capable of breaking through ice up to 9 feet, 3 meters thick, and reaching speeds over 22 knots, 25 miles per hour. It's powered by 2 nuclear reactors that give off a total of 342 megawatts of energy. The ship has a double hull, a water ballast system, an air bubbling system, as well as 3 propeller shafts to assist in icebreaking. It also has a helipad and hangar for 1 helicopter, as well as several Zodiac boats meant for exploration. The Yamal icebreaker ship was constructed by the Baltic Shipyard in St. Petersburg and commissioned in October 1992. It's named after the Yamal Peninsula in northwest Siberia, which means end of the land in the Nenets native language. The Nenets are an indigenous people who live in Russia's Arctic regions. The ship is run by Atomflot, a state-owned company that offers maintenance and technological services for every Russian nuclear icebreaker. The Yamal icebreaker ship has a unique role in Arctic tourism. It was the first to take passengers to the North Pole in July 1994 as part of an expedition put together by the National Science Foundation. The passengers and crew celebrated with a barbecue and a swimming party at the pole, despite the freezing temperatures. Since then, the ship has made many trips to the North Pole and other remote destinations, like Franz Josef Land, Severnaya Zemlya, and Wrangel Island. The ship can hold up to 100 passengers in 50 cabins and offers various amenities like a library, a sauna, a gym, and even a bar. The Yamal icebreaker ship is a remarkable example of how human ingenuity can overcome nature's challenges and create new opportunities for discovery. It is also a testament to Russia's commitment to maintaining its influence in the Arctic. The ship is currently in active service and continues to offer unique experiences for travelers who want to see the wonders of the polar world. 3. The 50 Let Pobyedy. The 50 Let Pobyedy is a nuclear-powered icebreaker for the Russian Federation. It's capable of breaking through ice up to 16 feet, 5 meters thick. The name of the ship translates roughly to 50 Years of Victory in Russian, and it commemorates the anniversary of the end of World War II. Construction began on the ship at the Baltic Shipyard in St. Petersburg in 1989. But construction was delayed for several years thanks to both financial and technical difficulties. The boat was originally named Ural, but was renamed in 2003 when work was resumed. In 2004, a fire broke out on board, injuring one worker and causing further delays. The ship was finally finished and launched in 2007, after the 60th anniversary of the victory. The ship is outfitted with 2 nuclear reactors that offer a total power of 342 megawatts. It has 3 propellers that can generate speeds of up to 21 knots, 24 miles per hour. The ship holds a crew of 140 and can accommodate up to 128 passengers. The ship also has a helipad and hangar meant for 1 helicopter. The Pobєdy is used for scientific research, polar expeditions, and even tourism. It has made several trips to the North Pole, becoming the first surface ship to reach it during the winter of 2011. The 50-let Pobєdy is a remarkable example of engineering and is a symbol of Russia's ambitions in the Arctic. The ship is also a witness to history and a tribute to the heroes who served in World War II. 2. The RRS Sir David Attenborough. The RRS Sir David Attenborough is a state-of-the-art polar research ship that was commissioned by the Natural Environment Research Council, NERC. It's operated by the British Antarctic Survey, BAS, and is named after the renowned naturalist Sir David Attenborough, who has inspired generations with his documentaries on the natural world. The ship is designed to support science in the most extreme environments, like the Arctic and Antarctic regions. It has a range of advanced scientific facilities, instruments, and laboratories that allow researchers to conduct multidisciplinary studies on the ocean, seafloor, ice, and atmosphere. The ship also serves as a logistical support vessel for BAS teams in inshore locations, giving them essential supplies and equipment. The ship is 423 feet, 129 meters long, 78 feet, 24 meters wide, and has a gross tonnage of 15,000. It can accommodate 90 people, including 30 crew members and 60 scientists. It has a cruising speed of 13 knots, 15 miles per hour, and an endurance of up to 60 days. It can break through ice of up to 1 meter, 3 feet thick. It can also carry 2 helicopters for aerial surveys and operations. The ship was built by Kamel Laird in Birkenhead and launched in July 2018. It was handed over to NERC and BAS in November 2020 after completing several technical sea trials and scientific equipment testing. It left the UK for its maiden voyage in November 2021, heading to Antarctica for its first season of research and operations. The RRS Sir David Attenborough is part of a major government investment in polar infrastructure that aims to keep Britain at the forefront of research in remote regions. The ship will help scientists address some of the most pressing challenges facing our planet, like climate change, biodiversity loss, and ocean health. 1. Shirase. Shirase is a Japanese icebreaker used for Antarctic expeditions. She is the 4th icebreaker of Japan and the successor of another ship called the Shirase, which was retired back in 2008. The name Shirase comes from a glacier in Antarctica, named after Lieutenant Nobu Shirase, a Japanese explorer who led the first Japanese Antarctic expedition there in 1910. Shirase is run by the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force and has the hull number AGB 5003. She was launched in April 2008 and has a length of 452 feet, 138 meters, a beam of 91 feet, 28 meters, and a displacement of 12,650 tons, 12.8 million kilograms. She can break ice up to 1.5 meters, 4.9 feet thick, and has a maximum speed of 19 knots, 21.8 miles per hour. Shirase's main mission is to support the Japanese Antarctic Research Expedition, JARE, which conducts scientific research in Antarctica. She transports personnel, equipment, and supplies to and from the Antarctic Kiowa Station and Dome Fuji Station. She also serves as a mobile base for helicopter operations and oceanographic surveys. Shirase is one of the most advanced icebreakers in the world and plays an important role in Japan's contribution to Antarctic research. She is also a symbol of Japan's spirit of exploration and discovery. We hope you liked this video. Let us know in the comments what your favorite ship from this list was. Please like, subscribe, and tell us your thoughts. Bye for now.